And a special happy birthday to Yaju World, who asked basically for me to do a Zanpakuto video for his birthday, or their birthday, which I'm more than happy to do. As long as it's a video I can do in one go, I'm happy to do a birthday video, provided that you give me a heads up when your birthday is, at least a day or two in advance, so I know. Because telling me it's your birthday the day of, I'm not going to do that. I can't. I've probably already got a schedule to keep. I probably got work or something. So just give me a day or two to just be prepared for that. But anyway, but Yaju actually commented that the birthday had already come, and they just forgot to tell me. So that's perfectly fine. I saved it for my day off because it made sense to do it. Anywho, let's get on to it. You asked, what is Karin Uzumaki's Zanpakuto? Something happened recently. I think it's because I had to update my computer where the images I was using to just show up here aren't even being saved in my computer. Or they're being saved, but they can't seem to be used on the OBS. So maybe I need to update the OBS, which I have been getting notifications for and I've just been ignoring. So maybe if I update that, I can use those images again. But I can still find workarounds as such. So anyway, Karin Uzumaki is... We actually didn't even learn Karin was... I'm sure it was speculated like the first few times we saw her, although Naruto's not in color, so we didn't even know she was a redhead, I think, for a little bit. But I think people speculate she was an Uzumaki for a little while until it was actually confirmed. And obviously, she's well known for being obsessed and in love with Sasuke, although her love is like a true obsession. Like, the girl is going to rape the kid. Like, dude, she's very just... although, quite frankly, still prefer her over Sakura, to be honest. I mean, if he gave her a chance, yeah, she'd be kind of creepy, but I think she'd be devoted and love him and all that goodness. Who knows? Although she clearly grew up, as we saw at the end of the series, with Boruto and in that little what was it? Naruto, Boruto, Gaiden, whatever they is, where Sarada tried to find her real quote unquote parents, and basically she wants Sasuke to be happy. So she clearly grew up a little bit. She probably ended up dating Suigetsu. Who knows? Probably not. Anyway. But for me, I look at this character, and I immediately see two things. One, she's a bit volatile. She's certainly volatile. But she is also a very caring and intellectual person. She's not like genius, but she's definitely a thinker. She does know how to strategize, and she is a supporter in terms of what she does. I think this does translate to a Kido-type Zanpakuto. And plus, we've seen other people who have, like, aggressive tendencies, but still have Kido-esque abilities. I mean... Well, I'm trying to think of a couple characters who fit that. I mean, most Kido users that we see do tend to be at least somewhat on the calmer side of things. They do, again, you look at Urahara, you look at Shunsui, Kido-type Zanpakutos. They're very calm in terms of their demeanor, in terms of and the way they approach things. But then you look at someone like Momo, for example, whose Zanpakuto technically is an elemental type, but is also a Kido type. She's very volatile, but she is also very kind, gentle, and intelligent, and can strategize. So she knows how to change her Zanpakuto with Kido spells. So it's very clear you can have a Kido user who is a bit more on the volatile side. I think this is one of those examples. Now, in terms of what the sealed sword would be, I think it's a standard katana, like I said. But 90% of, as I've said before, always 90% of all Soul Reapers generally have katanas. But even Urahara, for example, has a katana. Like his Zanpakuto is a katana. It turns into something that's not a katana, but still a basic sword. But it's a katana. The only ones I can think of, just off the top of my head, who do not have katanas are Tetsuzaya Maniba. He has a tanto. Gin had, I think, a tanto, but because of Shinso's abilities, I think it might have been a wakizashi. I'd have to look at the actual info on that. But anyway, because it could adjust its length, it's near impossible to tell. So I feel it has a wakizashi. But Shunsui has a kadachi and a wakizashi. He doesn't have a katana, he has a kadachi. Or a nodachi, I should say. Zaraki's is a very unique one in that it's technically not a kadachi or a nodachi. It's just like a sword of a similar length, but more in the style of a katana than anything. It's very weird, his sword, honestly. But other than that, the majority seem to have Zanpakuto that are, katanas. With, again, some mild exceptions. Anyway, katana would be the sealed state. The release. This release is always kind of a little hint of what the sword's capabilities might be. But usually it's just the release command, and it translates more into, the user themselves. And for me, I'm thinking on that, and one of the release coming out that just came to mind was Untangle. Now, the Shikai and Bankai name. The Shikai would be Hanatora or Flower Tiger. The Bankai would be Saku Hanatora Banya or Blooming Flower Tiger Field. Its spirit would be basically a red-headed woman, but in like a tiger kabuki mask that she never takes off. Basically, she would be like a kabuki character, is what her spirit would look like. As for what the sword actually looks like in its Shikai, well, that one I actually have an image for. I think it actually would be something akin to like Urahara's, where it just takes the form of a straight Chinese jian, I believe it's called. It's just straight Chinese, Chinese straight sword is what it is. A very elegant weapon, very good for one-handed use, one-handed fighting. In a skilled opponent's hands, it's actually very dangerous. Urahara, I keep mentioning Urahara, but I think Urahara did give me a little inspiration for the sword to a degree. Urahara's is similar. I don't have my webcam up. I actually have Benihime sitting right here because I got it for Christmas one year from my girlfriend. But Benihime definitely has a very similar design to a Chinese straight sword, although it does have a tip. Like not a tip. It does have like a katana's tip, I should say. It does have only like a single edge, and it has like a forked guard to it. But yeah, that is the general gist, I think, of her Shikai. What the Shikai does, though, and again, I keep referencing Urahara because I think this gave me a little bit of idea for what her sword could be based on kind of her personality. She's a little volatile, but she does mean well, and she can be a little selfish, but that's okay. We all can be a little selfish sometimes. But she is driven a little bit by her emotions. What I think this does, and what the idea came from, is the idea of her adamantine chains, which is an Uzumaki trait. The adamantine chains, her ability to heal, her mitzvah. I think what the sword would do is basically it separates reishi bonds. Basically, it untangles reishi bonds. Now, this is not the same as Urahara's ability to basically restructure things. This is not the same thing. But this is basically, it's not even deconstruction. The reishi can reform given enough time. But imagine, say, example, I will use a character here. Ichigo uses a Getsuga Tensho against her. She goes, Untangle! Take a Hanatora! And then she just strikes the Getsuga Tensho. Because the Getsuga Tensho is just made of pure spiritual pressure, Ryatsu, all that. She basically just untangles it. Now, it doesn't destroy the attack. It doesn't nullify the attack. It just separates it into weaker strands of reishi, and the attack just kind of separates and goes off. She can do that with theoretically any sort of reishi, so long as it makes contact, and her Ryatsu is strong enough to actually, compete with it. You don't necessarily have to be stronger, although Shinigami battles are a battle of Ryatsu, so if she is stronger, that certainly helps out a lot. But all she has to do is really be within the ballpark of strength of the attack, and she should be able to basically untangle and kind of separate the Ryatsu of the attack. Now, the weakness of the Shikai would obviously be, though, against, say, solid objects, where it's not, the reishi's so solid, it's actually, formed a object. So, like, if she strikes it against a rock in the Seirete, in theory, it could untangle the reishi of the rock. The rock could start to separate and crumble into smaller rocks, all that. But that takes a lot more effort. So against solid opponents, like if she's striking someone in battle, in theory, she can start to kind of untangle and separate their reishi bonds a little bit, making their Ryatsu a little bit in flux. But this particularly would only work if she does have Ryatsu to compete with the opponent. If she doesn't, like if she goes up against any captain class individual, which she would not be a captain class individual in my mind, even though I am going to create a Bankai in just a second. If she goes up against a captain class individual, all she's doing is striking them with a blade that maybe at least could cut them, but isn't going to really be able to use its ability. Likewise, a a something like Byakuya's Zenbonzakura or Zenbonzakura Kageyoshi, for example, which is still swirling around. She could part it and separate it and untangle its Ryatsu bonds, but eventually, as long as that it's still existing, it will just reform. It's not a permanent solution. So that now begs the question: what does the Bankai for this look like? Well, I think I decided to go with a bit of a literal translation for the Bankai from the name. Some Bankais most Bankais aren't literal in terms of translation. Some can be, but not all. And for me, I like the idea of basically she strikes the ground, Bankai, and then all of a sudden, the Reishi and the Ryatsu in the air, in the environment, the ground, everything around there, even like in the attacks, and can even be drawn from their opponent if the opponent doesn't get out of the way, start to just kind of untangle, unravel, but start to form into a Bankai, which takes the form of basically this weird flower field. And I liken this basically as something like something that changes the environment. What I mean by I liken it to, again, Urahara, whose Shikai doesn't change form, but he summons something when it's Bankai. Same thing here. Her Shikai, her sword doesn't change form. It's still that Chinese straight sword. But the entire area around her is now at her disposal and at her will. She's untangled the Ryatsu, but it's now converged into this flower field. Now, what's dangerous about the flower field? Well, the flower field is composed of nothing but Reishi and Ryatsu. That's hers to command. So she immediately swings her blade through the flowers, and all of a sudden this Ryatsu energy is just burning off her sword, and she can just fire it to her heart's content. She can just untangle it, maybe and fire like a laser, like tracking lasers of Ryatsu towards her, as she's kind of basically just pruning the flower field, basically. I could see a final technique where she basically just takes all of the energy and converts it into one strike that takes the form of a tiger roaring, kind of like a guy's afternoon tiger attack, and just go straight at the opponent. Now, the downside is, depending on the area of effect, she probably would not be able to use this Bankai in quick succession like some other characters can, because she just completely just ruins the Reishi in the area. She needs an area with stable Reishi. And because, especially in the Soul Society, Reishi will just soak back into the environment eventually, because that's the whole cycle of reincarnation. But yeah, if she's not careful, might even wind up in a scenario where she actually can't use her Bankai because the Reishi in the area is just not very good. The area effect can be varied because of how dense the Reishi and Ryatsu in the area is. If it's so condensed that to use her Bankai you get the necessary energy, it doesn't take a huge area of effect, but the energy is so condensed that, she's getting all the same effects she needs. It could basically be only a 20 or 30 meter radius. But if she's in a place like, say, Wako Mundo, where, yes, it's full of Ryatsu, but it's all tumultuous and, varying and thin and wispy, it could maybe extend for, almost a kilometer, because she needs there's so little Ryatsu in the area. Or, in the human world, for example, there's so little Ryatsu just in the area that, she just has to take it from so many sources. And, that expands the area of effect, sure, but that doesn't mean that the condensed, each flower is as strong as it would be if the Ryatsu in the area was more condensed. See, it's a Bankai with a lot of varying degrees of power depending on where she used it, the location of where the Bankai is being used. That said, it's clearly this would be a sword that has a lot of problems. It doesn't inherently have a range technique, at least not in Shikai. It does not. It's a Zanpakuto that is kind of very dependent on the whole relationship of Shinigami and their spiritual energy. So if she were a character in Bleach, she would have to be training her spiritual pressure up a lot. She'd have to really be training hard to make it so if she were to become a captain, she would be able to actually do something in a fight with this ability. Otherwise, it would be pointless regardless of how strong she got. So, yeah, and again, going up against stronger Ryatsu would basically kind of nullify a lot of these effects. But still, I think it's a Zanpakuto that would fit very well for a character like her. A character who clearly has a lot of passion to her, but isn't solely driven by it. She does have intellectual moments. She is actually very clever and very smart when she needs to be. So I like this concept for her. I like this concept for Karin. But this is just my concept. Do you have a concept for Karin Zanpakuto? What would you do with it if you would do something different? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you folks for the next one. Have a good one. And I think this will be the last one for today. I'll do my, maybe not. Well, yeah, it'll be the last one for today. I got box office to do later, so that's like the only thing I got to do left. Assuming whenever it updates. And hopefully I'll be able to pre-record my who would win before the day is out. But if not, it'll be up later in the afternoon tomorrow. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.